Here's a May 2022 energy update. This decade of 2020 to 2030 will mark the end of civilization as we know it. The question is, what will the change and the final outcome look like? Hi, I'm Saratoga Ocean, and I work together with an interdimensional, interuniversal, and extraterrestrial force known as Telstar, along with Archangel Michael. Now, we are more than 2 years into our final decade of experiencing civilization as we have always known it. That means that a lot is going to change in the next 7.5 years. Now, why do I highlight the year of 2030? Because that's the date that the controllers have set to completely take over this planet. Now, this does not mean they will succeed, but whether they succeed or not, things are going to dramatically change due to the battle that we now find ourselves in. Now, as I was tuning into the energy of May, one thing really stood out for me. We need to go deep within and shift our consciousness to a much higher level than where we are right now. And I'm specifically talking about those of us who are already awake. The people who wake up after us are going to be following our lead, so we cannot afford to be treading water and staying in the same place that we have been in so far. It's not enough to just say, I'm awake, and that's it. Now, there are really 2 levels of awakening. There's the physical level that is focused on the outer world, and then there's the spiritual level that is focused on our inner world and on expanding our consciousness. Waking up on the physical level is important because it involves a powerful realization about what is actually going on here. It's also highly motivating, but it's not enough in the end because your only recourse is to fight against and resist the controllers. A spiritual awakening is an even deeper and more expanded level of consciousness. And that's what we need right now. We need full spectrum awakening. This is what we should begin striving for in the month of May and beyond. See, much of our current awakening is resting on a foundation that is fast becoming obsolete. On the one hand, we can say that we want to preserve what we've always had so we can move forward from there. But on the other hand, there's a slight problem with that. The controllers made sure that they were the ones in total control of the entire civilization infrastructure so that when the time came, they would have the power to take it all down. And all this time, we thought they were just being nice to us. You know, like it was so nice of them to give us electricity, grocery stores, banks, schools, transportation, recreation, and communication devices, the internet, and the all-important television. We thought that they just wanted to give us a really nice life. No, what they really wanted was to have total control over our planetary infrastructure of life. That way, they would have the power to remove it all and change it when their final plan was ready to detonate. And that's what happened at the beginning of 2020. They literally lit the fuse on their final plan. So if we rest our awakening on our previous knowledge of reality, then we are literally resting it on the controller's earlier plan, where they controlled everything in order to bring us to where we are today. That's not the kind of leverage that we need at this point in time. Now, I can't say exactly what full spectrum awakening means for every single person. Ultimately, it would mean to come back into the full knowledge and metaphysical power of who we really are as cosmic creators. And every person is at a different phase of that understanding in their own experience. I think we're talking about a level of awakening that transcends words and language and takes us into an arena of direct and perfect knowledge and power. This is the level that the controllers fear we will discover, because that level means that they are done. They cannot compete at these higher levels of consciousness. Now, the physical level of awakening is also important because it means that the controllers are seen. And for every person who truly sees them, they lose power and they lose some of their leverage of control. This is the reason for their extreme level of censorship right now. See, we are essentially herd animals on a biological level, and when we communicate with words, those words can spread like wildfire throughout humanity. The controllers know this, and that's why they are so desperate to shut us down. They want full control of exactly which words and thoughts are spread around. They can't be having this giant free-for-all of communication. That would be like letting the horses out of the barn, for heaven's sake, and we can't have that. Now, here's what I think is really funny about the human controllers and their top tier of minions. They are being told that if they get rid of all the humans, then they will inherit the entire planet for themselves. But the higher up controllers are never going to let this happen. They are liars to the core. This small number of ignorant, arrogant humans will not be given the planet that the higher ups intend for themselves. These people don't know that this kind of thing happens all over the universe. And this little trick used by the higher echelon of controllers works like a charm when it targets people who are greedy and spiritually empty. So who are these higher up controllers? Well, it starts with the AI God, which is not even a personality. It's more like a void that swallows everything in its path and turns it into an artificial version of reality. And then we have certain species of extraterrestrials who are functioning in league with AI. This would primarily be certain species of gray aliens along with some reptilians. But there could be others. It's not as simple as many people think. You know, I was watching a video of Moulton Howe on her Earth Files channel the other day, and I saw something very interesting, which I'll share with you in just a moment. Now, some of you probably know that I am a fan of Linda's. That's because I think she is a true investigative journalist when it comes to the subject of extraterrestrials. I kind of like her because she never lays a final conclusion on you. She simply shares what she has learned from insiders and experiencers of all kinds, who she always vets over the course of 45 years of her investigative work. I also like her because I feel that she is very tuned into the complexity of the extraterrestrial universe. And she asks some really interesting questions. But mostly, I like the fact that she leaves the door open for you to figure things out for yourself. Now, I don't agree with everything she says, and I definitely don't agree with her opinion on the current physical events on this planet, like that health issue, for example. But we have got to get away from throwing people out who have tremendous things to offer, throw them out because they don't think like us on every single point. I'm sure the controllers love to see us behaving in that hive-minded way. It's exactly the direction they want us going in. It's very robotic to require that someone else's thoughts be an exact match to what you yourself think about in order to be valid. So before I get into what I saw on Linda's channel, which you definitely want to know about, I want to share with you that the controllers have a new superhero. His name is Dudley Righteous. Oh, Dudley Righteous is meant to be an example for us all to follow. We need to start policing all of these bad, unprescribed thoughts that are floating around in other people's heads. Seriously, it's just so wrong. Okay, now back to what I saw on Linda's channel. She had interviewed this guy named Adam Burns, who is a graphic designer in New York City. He has had a lot of extraterrestrial contact throughout his life and gets regular hypnosis sessions to find out about the parts that he doesn't consciously remember. Now, he is specifically connected to a praying mantis type of ET who is clearly benevolent and is helping him to prepare for a major shift in human consciousness that he was told will affect the Earth from 2020 to 2030. So Adam asked this extraterrestrial about who the ETs are who are working against us. He was told that there are two types of malevolent reptilians who are working against us. Now, because he is a graphic designer, he was able to depict the two types of reptilians that he was shown. One is a classic T-Rex type of reptilian, and the other is a snake-like type of being. So I want you to take a look at a screenshot of his depictions and tell me who they remind you of. This guy on the left bears a striking resemblance to a certain guy whose initials are KS, who I fondly call Mr. Dinosaur. You know who I'm talking about. The guy who started the WEF. Yep, that's the one. Isn't it weird how they sort of look alike? And this second one, lo and behold, looks just like the guy I named Mr. Snake. Remember him? Good old Yuval, who is Mr. Dinosaur's chief advisor. Oh, and by the way, here's another quote from Mr. Snake that I haven't shared with you. In case you thought that he was even remotely human, I think this quote will help to clear that thought from your mind. At one point, Mr. Snake lamented, "What to do with all these useless people? They are basically meaningless, worthless." So strangely enough, this looks like a pretty accurate portrait of the two people that I named Mr. Dinosaur and Mr. Snake. What an odd coincidence. The two most prominent engineers of our coming human apocalypse and transition into transhumanism and AI. And Linda also shared that in 2014, she met with a physicist who had worked at Area 51. He had been privy to government information from ETs who said that between 2020 and 2030, there would be one or more events that would substantially reduce the population of the planet. He said it could involve prominences from the sun or a variety of existential threats to humanity. Well, obviously the biggest existential threat to humanity is AI and the controllers. Now, I want to talk again about the timeline split that is currently in progress and accelerating every day. This is so important to be aware of because we are very much running out of time. The split is now manifesting between two types of humans. One is a purely biological, spiritually based human, and the other is going to be transformed into an artificial, hybrid humanoid species that is a blend of biology and AI. I suspect that if the controllers have their way, that our human species will either be killed off or turned into something similar to the gray alien race that operates as an extension of a totally controlled AI hive mind. So in this decade of 2020 to 2030, it is imperative that we evolve as quickly as possible. And that is the feeling that I have about this month of May in 2022. We all need to up our level of consciousness dramatically if we want to get through these coming times intact as the natural human beings that we are meant to be. So right now it seems that the controllers are not moving forward in any particularly visible direction. But let's not kid ourselves. They are absolutely planning to completely overhaul and take over this planet. We underestimate them at our own peril. I have no doubt that they are busy moving forward behind the scenes in preparation to strike us with their next surprise attack, just like they did at the beginning of 2020. Someday we might look back at these current times as the good old days. So let's not waste the opportunity that we have right now. I want to suggest that you go deep inside yourself and get very familiar with your intuitive senses. Do you feel like something is calling you to rise to a higher level? If so, then it is so important to pay close attention to that and take it very, very seriously. Don't brush it off as just another feeling that you can procrastinate on. This is a call from your inner light that is trying to show you the way forward in your consciousness. We are absolutely facing an existential threat to humanity and to all of biological life on this planet. This alien force of AI has enough of a foothold right now to end civilization as we know it. And we see that happening right before our eyes as the controllers unfold more and more of their plans. So let's talk about what that means and how we can steer that end to a more positive outcome for ourselves rather than a negative one. So the end of this civilization as we have known it is a foregone conclusion because the previous framework, structure, and underpinnings of our previous human planetary society were created by the controllers to bring us to this ultimate point of our biological demise. This has been the sole intent of school, religion, politics, war, the money system, and everything else that we as a humanity have lived through prior to now. It was to keep us all under control as ignorant slaves who would build the AI systems that would ultimately be used to take us down. So bringing back all of that in its former state makes no sense at all. And it's probably too late for that anyway. So if we do get through this intact as a biological humanity, then we're going to need to build something a whole lot better than that ridiculous slave system with the cookie cutter lifestyle that the controllers had us all trying to fit into. See, our old ways of doing things and our old ways of looking at things are just no longer sufficient. And like I said, those old ways are just a product of that highly controlled slave system. Now, before we can change what we're doing physically, we have to change how we operate internally. That's because everything we do on the outside emanates from how we feel and think on the inside. It emanates from whatever level of consciousness we are anchored into. And this is why I feel so strongly here at the beginning of May that it is so important that we elevate our level of consciousness. See, collectively, we have come out of these former systems as dutiful, compliant, trusting slaves. We have not come out of this as powerful manifestors, even though that is who we truly are. We are creators by nature, but we don't tend to see ourselves that way. And all of us have been affected by this collectively negative, compliant view of ourselves. Even those of us who are starseeds and lightworkers, we've also been affected by this as well. See, we currently have very little to counter these controllers with on a purely physical level because they are the ones who built literally everything that we have using us as their slave energy. Therefore, we have to go to a metaphysical level of intention. Intention is a power, my friends. It is an immense power when you use it wisely. And we have the capacity to use our intention in every direction imaginable. This means to use it as a radiating force of power that connects us to the greater power of the entire evolving universe. This universe is undergoing a massive evolutionary process of moving from darkness into light. When we are personally connected into that process, we will find ourselves greatly empowered as well. So we have to end this view of ourselves as victims. At this point, that is just personal suicide. Being a victim is kind of like an addiction. It robs you of your power under the false belief that the more victimized you are, the more you have a chance at salvation. But victimization is like a downward spiral. It's a vortex of negative energy that has no end and only serves to suck the positive energy out of you until you feel entirely incapacitated. The controllers know this, which is why they always foster a victim mentality whenever they want to gain more control. See, the controllers are metaphysically astute in very negative ways. We have to be more metaphysically astute in positive ways, which is something that they are unable to deal with. They can drag us down to their level, but they cannot rise to our human level of ascending, evolving energy. So that's where we need to go. We need to go to a level of consciousness that the controllers cannot reach. That's the secret that we need to unlock for ourselves. I truly believe that there is an increasing light within all of us as a humanity right now that is beckoning each of us to follow the path of ascension before it's too late. Some people will listen and try to follow that light, and many will not. The energy right now is asking us to aim for what I earlier called full spectrum awakening. This means to wake up at the fullest possible level of consciousness where we see all of this for what it really is and where we see ourselves as who we really are. From there, we will be guided about what to do next, and it probably won't have anything to do with what we previously thought. See, right now there's a lot of darkness in the air, but there's also magic. We need to follow the magic. We need to follow those sparks of miracles that twinkle in our peripheral vision like so many angels reminding us of what is really possible for us. Those are the sparks of ideas that if we put our attention on them, they can grow into something amazing. So I encourage you to apply this in the month of May. Firstly, tune in deeply to your intuition. Look for the light and then follow that light. Follow your inner knowing and guidance. Become a manifesting, intentional creator in your own life. You can practice that as a cosmic skill because it's something that we're all going to need in the coming days ahead. See, when you think of practicing manifestation as a cosmic skill, you're actually elevating your consciousness to a level at which you are intended to live in this universe. And think how much better that's going to feel than just feeling like a victim of these ridiculous controllers. So we have the space to engage in some serious human evolution right now. All we have to do is start thinking differently, let go of our old ways of looking at things, and open our minds and hearts to that inner light that is right there, present with us, ready to guide us to a completely new way of being and a new way of life. So if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and share it out with anyone else who you feel might be living with too many unanswered questions. And be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell because I am here every Tuesday with all new videos. And with that, I'm sending you loads of love, light, and high vibrational energy. Have a beautiful day, my friends. Namaste.